Now we're going to dive deeper into the techniques of negotiation when you look at the approach to different parts of a transaction. See, conversation and the negotiations and conversations usually tend to be in the break of flow or an objection to something that you were hoping to receive as a result in the conversation. But actual transactional negotiations around the giving, taking, or receiving from a buyer or seller and the agent being the representative for each side is that many times there's a different approach to what steps can we take, whether that be in contract negotiations, in negotiations regarding concessions, inspections, resolutions, appraisals. Those are specific steps and stages that are highly predictable, where we know that there are predictable objections that we're going to have to be in a form of negotiation. And remember, negotiations are best led through intelligence. So the more questions we ask, so let's dive into a couple of those as you start looking at staying in the game, and your workbook is what makes you say that. This is a great question to come at certain conversations or negotiations from a place of confusion and curiosity, which is much better when you look at maybe asking, help me understand what is the reason for why the seller is not willing to blank. By getting that information, it helps you articulate, all right, what is happening within a situation or negotiation to the people you're representing, which helps them as well become negotiable. But also for you, it removes you being confrontational. So as we are more curious or confused and seek to understand, you will most likely experience less altercation. So the other ones, as you start looking at, before you make your mind up, would it help if we sat down and reviewed the difference between working with a discount brokerage and a premier brokerage like mine? Now, as you start looking at, would it help if you could see how both of these start moving you forward with a different context of negotiations? Would it help if we were able to get a roofer out to the home to support the price opinion on what the seller's asking for a concession? See, these would it helps is what you can take back to the person you're representing, so then that way they feel like they are part of and or leading a negotiation. Then you also have, if I can, will you? And this is great for when you look at the negotiations of offer acceptances in a highly competitive market, meaning low inventory and lots of offers. You start looking at knowing that you said, or since you shared with me that your seller is looking for blank, 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 and blank, if I can, then will you? So this is a great form of give and take, but remember, it all stems from our ability to be able to show people that we know them, which is how much we know. Another form of good negotiation, would it be enough? Or is meeting on a weekly basis enough to give you what you need to progress your business forward? As you start looking at coaching, just one more thing. So just one more thing before I go, or just one more thing before we make up our mind, or just out of curiosity, what specifically is it that you want to talk to your spouse about while making up your mind? So as you start looking at, how do I stay in the game in acts of negotiation? We'll talk specifically about each situation as you get farther into a transaction on how to negotiate, but I just want to make sure you give you the right context in where am I working on these negotiation techniques, so that way in final thought, you're able to share with people your next action, because one of the best ways to overcome a negotiation is to not get into one. If what we can do is lead people down a path where they do not see anything that would prevent them from moving forward, or anything that would be not leading them towards the pleasure of what they're looking to achieve, is that the final thought is really just leading people with, here's what we're going to do next, or the next action, and you actually start moving people forward into the steps, is one of the best forms of negotiation. So then that way we are now actually in the act of doing something versus negotiating hypothetically whether we will or we won't.